Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com, debatephysics.com also, video presentation. But as stated, the debate is so awful. I mean, they can't reasonably counter anything I actually argue, and all they can do is distract with lies and nonsense and babble and silly crap. Yeah, it's dishonest nonsense. So this Kathy person has come back for no good reason. She doesn't have any argument. She doesn't know any physics. So just a waste of time now. So she's just going to do her. They talk about honesty, integrity, and then they show absolutely none. Okay, so she wants to be taken seriously, and yet she'll play a stupid ass games. Oh, I'm not a silly bitch. Yes, you are. You're just proving it. Proving you're exactly the antithesis of what you claim to defend and want in the world. So anyway, you want respect and yet you show none. It's just ridiculously silly. Alright, so anyway, wait, I just shared a link to Walter Bislin. So I can honestly say, on the souls of every person I've ever loved, that I don't know the name of a single flat earther. Yes, not a single one. Okay, there's no neurons have I ever wasted on a flat earther. Nothing. Just zero. But these people are obsessed with him. Yo, what is that? What exactly is that? So some flat earth model. So what does that have to do with me? Oh, that's right. Absolutely nothing. So anytime anything happens, you can just guilt by any kind of association. It doesn't matter. They have the same color hair. They're a woman. Just categorize them. Just play the game. I'll blame all women for the behavior of a couple of women. That's how I'll play the game. So all people who think your physics is absolute shit, they're all flat earthers. Oh, I see. And my comment got deleted. I didn't delete it, so obviously you didn't phrase it very well, because you're just yeah, generic rag comment about the quality of certain forms of human life that can't handle the truth. Okay, I mean, ridiculous shit. Just show up for no good reason, just to and this is the integrity of their counter argument. So you make a simple point, okay, that there's no possible way that you drop 1 pound, 15 centimeters, okay, and it weighs 64 pounds. That's not possible. Now, 6.4 pounds, that's really possible. But 64? No, that's ridiculous. And this asshole is going to keep defending it. I mean, the third fucking video I've had to make now. And to make a simple point that it's an obvious error, as I pointed out, I mean, if you actually do any of these experiments yourself, you'll see what it looks like. And as I stated, I mean, the fact that science hasn't done them, so we don't have them done clinically. But I'm just saying, it isn't that much work. You take a, $5 scale that has a spring in it. Take a spring and just, you drop a weight. You see that, oh yeah, 15 centimeters is not going to make something 64 times as heavy. That isn't going to happen. But 6.4 times as heavy? Yes, that may very well happen. And that's pretty much how it comes out. I didn't go that high. I went 1 centimeter and 4 centimeters and got the trend pretty well nailed. And yeah, that's the trend. The weight doubles. Okay, so 1 centimeter, double your weight. 4 centimeters, twice your weight. Twice that weight. And then 16 centimeters, 4 times that, 4 centimeters, double again. I can't, you just sit here and say, what? He's going to try to rationally defend something that's just an obvious mistake? So this is part of the argument, right? So their physicists somehow can't make any mistakes. They don't fuck up. Okay, every experiment is pristine and perfect, and clearly it's a piece of shit. Okay, it's just wrong. The answer was wrong. Okay, it's just obviously wrong. I don't. They didn't do any that. I didn't watch the whole video, so I didn't bother watching whatever calculating he did. But it can't be right. I mean, there's no way you can convert 44 grams, which is 0.44 newtons, into 32 newtons by dropping it 15 centimeters. That can't happen. Oh, I just I just can't believe it. Anyway, you blocked me before you read the part. Yes, I blocked you because this is idiotic. I don't have to endure an idiotic conversation. And it's idiotic. Your premise, you don't have any counter evidence, and anyone who has lived on planet Earth and ever touched a hammer or a screwdriver or a pair of pliers knows that 1 pound dropped 15 fucking centimeters does not weigh 64 pounds. I mean, have you ever picked up 64 pounds? I used to have some dumbbells that were 40 pounds of steel. And yeah, it was a lot of work to even just hold that up. I mean, it's no fun at all. So you can understand just from, frankly, a little bit of life intuition, there's no way, okay, if I drop this little battery 15 centimeters, that it's going to weigh 20 pounds. It's not going to happen. Oh, fuck. I just can't believe it. Part of my comment where I explained why the measured force values in the spreadsheet were likely close to real forces. There's no chance. It's worse than flat earth science. It's so far off. It's so wrong. It's a 100 magnitude error. It's way the fuck off. And then he says, that's not fair. Oh, yes, it's more than fair. I've given you more than a fair opportunity to make a rational argument, and now you can't even concede something obvious. That there's an obvious huge mistake in the data collected when you contrive some nonsense that 1 pound dropped 15 centimeters could weigh 64 pounds. All right. I pointed out that if you use the values in the spreadsheet, force times time, there's no point. A newton is a specific thing. It's in newtons, asshole. It's already calculated, jackass. Gives us a prediction for the change in momentum that is pretty close to what actually happened in the video. So again, this is nonsense. There's no way to fix it. The number is in newtons. It's basically telling you it's in pounds, for fuck's sake. There's no way to avoid that. A newton is a specific amount of weight. It's the actual weight of 100 grams. 100 grams puts a newton of pressure on the surface when it in gravity. That's its definition of its fucking weight. So again, you don't care about the physics. You don't care about science. You're just contriving a fucking silly excuse for an obvious error. All right, anyway, based on the values using force times time, you keep saying it. He already calculated the newtons, jackass. The pressure sensor is telling you the number, and it's way the fuck off. All right, anyway, the ball should have bounced up approximately 10 centimeters. Well, in some perfect circumstance, you would expect that if it was very elastic, it would have bounced 15. So I don't know how you know how much the ball would bounce. You'd have to know how elastic or rubbery the ball was. Obviously, different materials bounce better than other materials in terms of they absorb energy and then release the energy back. I mean, you do understand the only reason why it's bouncing is because the ball is absorbing the energy. You do understand that, don't you? Okay. Based on what we saw in the video, the ball bounced a little bit more than half, and the assumed drop height was 15 centimeters. It wasn't assumed. He had a little ruler. It was close enough. He was certainly within a half centimeter. So let's not play this moron game. What does this even mean? The ball bounced a little bit more than half of the measured drop height of 15 centimeters. So yeah, we already know that tennis balls are only 25% back. Yeah, I mean, you lose 25%. So this isn't news to anybody. It's not the point. The point is we're measuring how much the pressure was that built up before it released the pressure in the opposite direction. Let's say 8 centimeters. More nonsense. We're talking about the peak pressure created. That is the peak weight. What would have been measured on a spring if you had dropped it on a spring? It's no more complicated than that. Obviously, the drop height wasn't very exact. You say it wasn't. If the ruler was 15 centimeters, I think the true drop height was a little bit higher. And again, it's not going to fix anything, which would make the prediction even better. It's not even close. It can't be any better. It's 100% too high. It's 100 times too heavy. 100 times too heavy. It's 100 times too heavy. It's 100 times too heavy. Oh, God damn. The other thing the result showed was that direction matters. So this is really retarded. I mean, you're just measuring the pressure at impact. There's no direction involved. There's no nothing. You're measuring an impact pressure. Okay, when talking about momentum. So, what a lie. Otherwise, force times time would not have given a good answer. As stated, the answer was perfectly consistent if you just understand, obviously, there was a decimal place out of place. It's a 100 times wrong answer. The obvious answer is the decimal's in the wrong place. This was another piece of evidence that didn't matter to you. So again, lie. There's no evidence. What evidence was there? Otherwise, force times time would have not given a good answer. Where's your evidence of anything like that? The answer was perfect as long as you just figure out that it's 100 times off. Oh, 100 times off probably means the decimal's in the wrong place. This was another piece of evidence that didn't matter to you because it didn't agree with you. So again, he's defending something that's just absolutely ludicrous. I can't, So what should I argue with a lunatic that does this horse shit? This is a complete waste of everyone's time. If this has to be explained to you, then you're too stupid for the conversation. That's all that can be said. Nobody reasonable argues that 1 pound dropped 15 inches could possibly weigh 64 pounds. In the example, something essentially weighing a half pound, right, weighed 32. So you can under it 64 times the weight of the object dropped. And one more thing, didn't you forget the bounce in your own analysis? Why would I'm not paying any attention to the bounce. All I cared about was the weight. I find it very interesting to talk about impacts, to talk about the pressure created by the impact. How much can the impact move a compressible object? And if that compressible object is a linear measurement, like in Hooke's law, I'm getting a reading of its momentum, and it's a pretty accurate way of understanding exactly what its impact is. And that's what I was concerned with. That's what the experiment was about. So I don't even know what you're talking about. There is no analysis that has anything to do with anything else. He could have dropped a steel ball. It doesn't matter what he dropped. He was just saying how much pressure does it create? How much gravity, how much energy does gravity give the ball? Shouldn't the bounce reduce the measured force according to your model? So again, the bounce is a material thing. It has to do with what materials are hitting each other. It doesn't have much to do with anything else. There was no spring on the ball, and there was no spring on the scale. I'm just kidding. You don't even have a model. So again, there's just no point. So go ahead, make another sock account. I don't give a fuck. Waste your time as much as you want. I'm not going to read your comments anymore. I'll just delete them. I'll block them. Okay, that's all I'll do. Because this isn't an argument. So I'm going to show it one more time. Just point out how silly what he's arguing is. And that's it. We're done. Because I shouldn't have to do this over and over again. This is idiotic. Your position is untenable. It's nonsensical, and you're just proving my point. You're religious kooks defending absolute nonsense, and you know nothing about the subject. You have no capacity to make an argument. You're just saying, it's in my Bible. It's in my Bible. You're not doing anything more than that. You fucking piece of garbage. God damn. I do hate people. All right, we already read this. Quick change in motion, blah, 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 blah. just babbly boo, he called himself. That's exactly what it was, babble. So that's all they can produce. There's just no capacity for a reasonable argument. So again, I had done some of these experiments, so I'll just illustrate real quickly. I said I was curious, so I have a little cheap scale. And what I did was, is I dropped something from different heights and saw how much the scale read. Okay, so it's not very complicated. So something weighed 1 unit of, like, say, an ounce or whatever it was on the scale. And then I dropped it, and I was looking for the number that would tell me how much, okay, does it take to double its weight. And what I found was 1 centimeter did it. So no matter what I drop it 1 centimeter, okay, and it weighs twice its weight on the scale. And then you go 4 times higher, which makes perfectly good sense. Go 4 times higher and then drop it, and you double that weight. So the double weight is doubled. So in this case, all right, the ball was 0.44, as I pointed out. And so you take it up 1 centimeter, all right, and then it's 0.88. All right, that's really easy to understand. So 1 centimeter fall, yes, the weight doubles. Got it. Now I go 4 times higher, which is going to double its velocity. That's a known fact, right? So I go 4 units of height, and I'm going to double this weight, all right? So the 88 is going to get doubled to 170, whatever it was, 4, right? 176. Okay. Right? So that's double. That's 4 centimeters. And then you go 4 times that to the 16 centimeter mark, right, as pointed out. And it it doubles that amount, all right, that 1.76, it's actually. But it doesn't matter. You can just use absolute grams because it comes out the same way. Anyway, because that's a newton, 1.76 newtons. And the answer is 352 or whatever it was, right? Okay. And the point is that 15 centimeters was the actual height it was dropped. So obviously it's going to be a little less than that 352. And so the answer was 32, right? So you can understand 32 point, I think it was 4, but it doesn't matter. So you can obviously see, oh, okay, I get it. This is 3.52, and this was 32 as the answer. And it's just so obvious that all you do is move a little decimal point over there, and now it's a rational answer. So instead of it being 64 times the weight, you can understand that it's 8 times the weight, or 7, whatever, 7.5. And that makes perfectly good sense, right? The 0.44 goes into 3.2, pretty close to, okay, the, required, well, it's actually 6, right? 6 point whatever times. So 6 times the weight makes really good sense. 64 times doesn't make any sense at all. And so that's the simple argument. It's not very complicated, right? It's not challenging. And you can really understand there's no possible way that 0.44 newtons could drop 15 centimeters and weigh 32.4 newtons. You know that can't happen. And he's defending it. I mean, this is the data in the experiment. It's clearly wrong. And I have to go through all of this nonsense to point out clearly a mistake. Clearly. Just, there's no argument. And it just turns out that, frankly, the mistake is completely consistent with what I have argued. And frankly, since what I'm arguing, I've personally experienced, I personally did the experiment. Now, the fact that you haven't ever done any of these experiments is not my fault. Okay, they're not. And again, I did it with a really cheap scale, and science could have done these experiments hundreds and hundreds and millions of times even, and they haven't bothered doing them ever. And you have to ask you the question, why wouldn't they do that? Isn't that a very curious thing? Wouldn't this be an important thing to know, that there's a velocity that you can move something at, whether it's an elephant or a little baby chick? No matter what it is, I move it into a scale, okay, put on its side, and it doesn't matter what it is. If I move any mass, this specific velocity, it will weigh its gravitational weight. Now, I think that's a really interesting number to know. Wouldn't it be an interesting number to know? It's not anywhere in the annals of your physics. Not a single physicist. I mean, not even Newton, not even Galileo. I don't see it anywhere in anything they talked about either. But they didn't have handy little springs and scales, I guess. But I mean, the point is that it seems like something everybody should want to know. What velocity equals what momentum equals your momentum going into Earth, in the sense that your weight, because your weight is the byproduct of your mass, has to be moving to have a weight. If I have a weight in space and put it next to a scale, it doesn't weigh anything, right? There's no pressure on the scale. It doesn't weigh anything. It only weighs something because gravity is imposing a downward pressure. And that pressure has an exact momentum. And it turns out that it's exactly 1 mile an hour, actually. Pretty close. Let me just say exactly, because it's probably not exactly. It's probably not exactly 1 centimeter. It's probably not exactly 1 mile an hour. But it's really close. Close enough. Your science hasn't even done the experiment. And here you are arrogantly telling me what I have to believe. You have to believe your religious notions that 1 pound dropped 15 centimeters weighs 64 pounds. Yeah, I mean 64 pounds. You can just imagine 64 pounds. I mean, my whole body would have to react. And obviously I can drop more than 1 pound, 15 centimeters into my hand, and my hand will do a perfectly good job of supporting it, the weight, because it's not going to be 64 pounds. All right. But, I mean, so look, the point is being proven. Every little asshole that shows up here who knows a little bit about science, they have a few little credentials. I mean, the woman actually, she went to college, took chemistry, zoology, biology, whatever, and she can't do just basic conceptual reasoning. And this other asshole, I mean, to argue this 3 times now, ridiculous, when it's obvious the experiment was a pile of crap with the data stated. I think the pressure sensor worked. I think everything did work just fine. And all he did was put the wrong formula into the Excel sheet. And so it calculated newtons. Who knows what the damn scale, the pressure thing actually reads in. Probably doesn't read in newtons. So he manufactured that number. And what he manufactured was a fable. Because there's no way the pressure sensor says that was 64 pounds. It said it would have been if it was a pound object dropped. Didn't happen. It didn't weigh 64 times its gravitational weight. It didn't produce that much of an impact pressure. Okay. Anyway, just terrible. I just hate this planet of just lying scum. They just can't have any kind of honest interaction, because they're just jihadists defending a shitty religion, and it's shitty. It doesn't have any good ideas in it. Entanglement, whatever, warp drive, wormholes, time warping. Sorry, no sale. Too ridiculous. Ugh, people are just so fucking. Ugh, God. Anyway, so it's all public. It's a record anyway. Like I said, after I'm dead, this will be this story. Okay, so Newton was a story, Galileo was a story, Descartes was a story. This story is going to have the same kind of thing like with Galileo and the Inquisition. You're the Inquisition. You were the obstacle. You were the anti-science people. You, claiming to be the great defenders, were the greatest enemy of science. All right. You shut it down wherever you could if it disagreed with your religion. You're unevidenced, completely avoid the evidence religion. Again, not to do any of these simple experiments. Not one of them. None of them. Never dropping 4 pounds 1 foot and 1 pound 4 feet to prove to the world that that's the same power and energy. And you haven't even done that experiment. You piles of scum. You claim it's a truth, even though the lever, a 10,000-year-old tool, perfectly illustrates it can't be the truth. Because the lever says no. 1 pound moving 4 velocity equals 4 pounds moving 1 velocity. Clearly telling you what the truth is. And you're obstinate to that truth and pretending you have some sort of reason to believe this other truth is true. That somehow 1 pound going 4V is twice as much energy as 4 pounds going 1. And you have no physical evidence that it's true. And you certainly have no physical evidence that 3 times the velocity is 9 times the energy, and no physical evidence that 4 times the velocity is 16 times the energy, and certainly no evidence that 5 times the velocity is 25 times the energy. All of these fables you're defending. And with this arrogance. So how does anybody logical make a distinction between the completely faith-based assertions of the religious Inquisition and you assholes? What's the distinction? You have no evidence to support your theory, and yet you will force it on humanity. Any dissenter must be stopped. Yeah, fuck you. Get what you deserve, you scum.